Okay, I've been looking around YouTube for a couple days. I haven't looked at everything, but I've typed in the word lupus and blog multiple times to see if anybody's making a blog about lupus right now. And no. So I figured since I have lupus, I'd go ahead and start my own. I'll start with the backstory. When I was 12 years old, I began getting blood blisters on my lips. I had 3 separate episodes of just blood blisters right here, all over my lip. First time I went to the doctor, and the doctor said I must have done something to cause it, blunt force trauma, that sort of thing. And so sent me home, no big deal. But I was also feeling very tired and getting a lot of headaches and just feeling very icky at the time. My psychiatrist diagnosed me with depression. I was in the middle of middle school, 7th grade year. What middle school kid isn't depressed? But so I went on medication for that, and it didn't really help. And then I got blood blisters again, and they didn't really know what was causing them. They were like, okay, this is a little weird, but we'll send you home. And that was the end of that, until a couple months later when I got a 3rd set of blood blisters. And this was on a Friday. And my mom took me to the doctor, and she insisted that they do a blood test. And I'm very thankful for my mom for that, because they did a blood test. Saturday morning I was about to go out skateboarding, because I was into that at the time, and I got a call from the doctor. And the doctor said, hey, can I talk to your mom? And she sounded pretty serious, and I was a little confused, but I gave the phone to my mom. I figured, nothing could be really that wrong. I was 12 years old. What could happen to me? And I handed the phone to my mom and said, well, I'm going to go out skateboarding. And my mom was like, well, wait a few minutes and see what the doctor says. So I went downstairs, and I sat on the couch and just waited with my skateboard in my hand. And she yelled down the stairs, Sarah, don't go outside, you're gonna die! Which was not the best thing my mother could have said at the time. She was a little panicked, because what the doctor had to say was that my platelet count had dropped to 12, same as my age. And for those of you who don't know, the platelets are the part in your blood that make it clot. So if you don't have very many and you get a cut, you can bleed to death very easily. And the normal count for platelets is 150 to 450. So they told us to go to the emergency room right away. And they called to let them know that we would be on our way. And we got there. And they gave us a room right away. They don't usually do that, in my experience since, they don't. And they put me in this nice little corner room, I still remember it very well, in the pediatrics unit, because I was 12, so still a child. And there were turtles and dolphins and stuff on the ceiling, and I remember being very, I liked the dolphins and turtles. And we were down there waiting for a while, but they put an IV in, and I completely freaked out about the needle, because I was still afraid of needles at the time, and I was just, no, I don't want them putting that in me. Took some blood and ran some tests, and my platelets were still pretty low. I don't remember what they were after the second blood test. The entire time is kind of hazy. But I do remember they gave me a lot of apple juice and graham crackers. And since my platelets were still very low, they checked me into the hospital. And I was there for 5 days. They gave me my own little room. And my mom went home and brought me my tapes of The Facts of Life and The Division, because I was a very big Nancy McKeon fan. The entire time I was in the hospital, I watched the division and the facts of life back to back, and that's basically all I did because I couldn't get out of bed. One time during that time, I did try to get out of bed, and I passed out on a candy striper. My mom said the look on the poor girl's face was hilarious because she didn't know what to do. I was the first kid to pass out on her. Yay me, great honor. And one of the nurses taught me Little Bunny Foo-Foo, you know. Little bunny foo-foo, hopping through the forest, scooping up the field mice and bopping them on the head. That. And I didn't know all of it, and she taught me the rest of it. And during the time there, they did a lot of blood tests on me. My first diagnosis was ITP, which is idiopathic thrombocytopenic purpura, because they didn't know it was causing my platelet to drop so low, which is the idiopathic part. They performed more tests, including a bone marrow test, because they wanted to make sure I did not have leukemia. And bone marrow came out clean, but during the test, the doctor that was performing it, his beeper kept going off quoting sugar prices and all sorts of stock quotes. So everybody in the room was laughing, and like the nurses, and they all found it hilarious. I didn't know what was going on. I was just on my stomach in a lot of pain because there was a needle in my bone, and there was some lady I didn't even know trying to talk to me about the facts of life, but the show, not like the birds and the bees. And that kind of is indicative of my whole attitude towards lupus. You can't get through it without a sense of humor or a lot of strength. You can't get through most things in life without a sense of humor if you want to stay sane. There became a rumor around my school that I had leukemia because the only two things that got back to my school was bone marrow and transfusion, because I did have to have a platelet transfusion after a Winrow treatment. They tried to give it to me to get my platelets up, but it didn't work. And they told me that if I had a reaction, it would occur within 2 to 6 hours. 24 hours later, I had the reaction. I waited until my mom went home to sleep, and my dad came to visit me in the hospital. Like, as soon as my mom left, I got really, really sick and started turning colors, and it was fun. And the diagnosis of lupus came about 3 weeks after I got out of the hospital. The first time they drew blood to test for lupus was right after the transfusion. And I said, well, won't that affect the blood test results? And my doctor assured me, oh, no, they'll be just fine. And she called me a week later and said I definitely did not have lupus. And she took more blood. And 2 weeks later, I definitely did have lupus. I had all of the anti-nuclear antibodies and everything in my blood to say that I had lupus. And that was my first disease diagnosis. And they put me on a course of prednisone treatment. And I graduated 8th grade, somewhat larger than I had started middle school, partly because of growing and partly because of all the weight gained from prednisone. And I was still on high dosages when I started high school. And I'll stop there for today. Hopefully it's been informative to anybody who's watching it about experiences. I'm hoping to continue this just to log what happened to me, get it out there so other people that are going through similar things will know that they're not alone. I'm here for anybody that wants to talk about their experience. I'd like to hear other people's stories or just read comments about other people's experiences with lupus. It's not something that you hear about all the time. So I'd like to hear other people's reactions, and I'll continue on, and hopefully you'll keep watching and learn more. Thanks for tuning in, you guys. See you next time.